Antifa spent the weekend wrecking buildings, breaking in stores, attacking cops, and wreaking havoc like a bunch of escaped zoo animals. From New York City to Los Angeles, violent left-wing thugs left a trail of destruction across several major cities, and thank you, taxpayers, for cleaning up the mess. And supposedly, it was all in the name of racial justice, which has become a convenient scapegoat for acting a fool because you're a loser with no job or decent parentage. And whenever we watch this, time and time again, our questions are always the same. Why aren't local leaders doing anything to stop the violence in their own backyard? Why aren't congressional Democrats condemning this the same way they condemned a few hundred fools at the Capitol? Does the media truly not see their own double standard in reporting this crap? And where the heck is Joe Biden? And if we were dealing with any decent people with any set standards, those would be fair questions, but see, that assumes the left would call out Antifa violence in the first place. That they disagree with it and think it should be condemned. It assumes that Antifa and the liberal politicians who are ignoring them aren't simply two sides of the same exact coin with the same exact goals. So you don't criticize something with which you agree. And the only reason to willfully ignore something this awful for this long is if you sympathize with it. And the left's been awfully quiet. Antifa thugs continue to tear up places like Portland like it's tissue paper. Not that CNN would ever tell you that, so we will. Rioters clashed with police over the weekend as the mob wrecked businesses, vandalized public property, and attacked the federal courthouse again. Protests turned riots broke out in multiple cities across the country, supposedly to commemorate the anniversary of Breonna Taylor's death. You'll recall this is the young woman who was shot to death in her own apartment in the middle of the night after her boyfriend shot at the cops first as they executed a no-knock search warrant because they had cause to believe Taylor's drug trafficking ex-boyfriend might have been there. And as per usual, Antifa decided the best way to honor her was to smash up buildings, wreck storefronts, and attack people. In Portland, rioters smashed in windows in a residential neighborhood and vandalized businesses. Several were arrested, and police confiscated a whole slew of weapons like loaded guns, knives, slingshots, crowbars, and hammers. Most of those arrested were immediately bailed out. In LA, at least 9 businesses were vandalized, and 3 cops were sent to the hospital. But wait, this was all Donald Trump's fault, right? Wasn't he the fascist? I know drugs are bad, okay, and they can scramble your brain like eggs, but y'all do know he's been out of office for like 2 months, right? And I thought this was supposed to be the side of nonviolence. Democrats in Congress are still ranting about January 6th like it was the storming of the freaking Bastille. Meanwhile, their own thugs are ripping apart cities, assaulting citizens, destroying private property, and generally wreaking havoc because the left seems to have trouble reining in their own rabid stray dogs. Either that or, well, they just don't care to. And that's on purpose. See, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, these groups are just the most blatant, upfront examples of what the left actually wants. A dismantling of this country from the top down. Anything that comprises the building blocks of an ordered society, the nuclear family, law and order, basic decency, something as simple as the biological concept of 2 genders, they want to destroy all of it. If it even resembles a basic tenet of Western civilization or Judeo-Christian values, it's now demonized and it's got to go. Having a mother and a father who stay married is now white privilege. Getting good grades, holding down a job, taking any amount of personal responsibility for yourself and your decisions, that is now white supremacy. Obeying the law and expecting others to do the same is now fascism. Breaking the law should be ignored or even rewarded with free stuff. Gender reveals or bigotry in basic science is violence. A person shouldn't be expected to work, but they should be able to steal from those who do to pay their bills. Dr. Seuss is offensive, but Cardi B is empowering. Trees are sacred, but babies aren't people. Men are women, and you can marry a houseplant. Up is down, wrong is right, and voila. See, the whole thing falls apart because now society has no basic foundation. That is Antifa. That is Black Lives Matter. And that is the left. The entire point is the destruction of Western civilization. Antifa and Black Lives Matter might be a bunch of mindless idiots, but at least they're honest in that regard. The only difference between the Antifa rioting in Portland and the leftists bent on destroying this country in Congress is that Antifa uses a baseball bat and Pelosi uses a pen. Black Lives Matter destroys stores while Chuck Schumer destroys the Constitution. The tactics may vary, but the goal is the same. That's why it didn't stop with Trump, because it was never really about him. It's why Joe Biden has refused to recognize Antifa as a terrorist group and instead calls them an idea.
Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you gotta be
not
kidding.
militia.
It's why the leftists who run these cities aren't doing a darn thing to stop it. It's why the media aren't calling it out, and liberal politicians have raised so much money to bail these fools out of jail. Waiting for these guys to put a stop to this mess is like wondering why the refs aren't calling out the penalties when they're too busy cheering from the stands. A hatred of America, her history, and what she stands for is the bedrock of leftism, and her destruction is the goal. It always has been. The only difference is that some of the morons do it in masks, while others do it in suits. And that's your Reality Check, America. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page and Rumble, like us on Facebook and Twitter, and stay sane out there.